gravity was a bully. And after a month on Mars, Lyra still felt its constant nagging pressure on her bones. Back in the Freeholds, drifting through the silent zero-G corridors of Syrtis Conclave, movement had been a thought, a gentle push. Here, in the chaotic, multi-level crush of New Syrtis' hub, every step was a chore, a negotiation with a planet that felt like it was actively trying to hold her down. Her father called it finding your Mars legs. He said it with the relentless optimism of a man who had traded the cold, predictable black of the belt for the promise of the red dream. He worked a double shift hauling industrial lubricants in the Warrens, coming back to their tiny hab unit with a bone-deep weariness and, always, a faint tracing of rust-red dust under his fingernails. To him, that dust was a badge of honor. To Lyra, it just looked like dirt. She was meant to be buying nutrient paste, but she'd been drawn to the roar from a public hollow pit, a sunken amphitheater where Martians gathered to watch their favorite sport. On the massive screens, armored rovers kicked up crimson plumes as they raced through the treacherous, winding canyons of Valles Marineris. It was Cañon-Running, a spectacle of speed and suicidal nerve that was the planet's lifeblood. A group of keens, their faces lean and sharp, with the unmistakable look of the low-G born, were crowded near the railing, shouting at the screens. One of them, a boy with a streak of copper-dyed hair, noticed her watching. "Get lost, Floatie," he sneered, his eyes flicking over her patched belter jumpsuit. "Go back to your ice hauler. This is a red dirt sport." His friends laughed. Lyra felt a hot flush of shame and anger. She didn't say anything, just turned and shoved her way back into the river of the hub, the derisive laughter following her. Floatie. The word was a cage, defining her by the home she'd left behind. That night, sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. At the hab's public terminal, she bypassed the flashy race highlights, the dramatic slow-motion replays, and heroic driver profiles. Instead, she dove into the raw data feeds, the language she understood. Her screen filled not with glory, but with scrolling lines of telemetry, thermal readouts from overworked engines and stress test simulations on chassis frames. She watched suspension coils compress and rebound in grainy engineering footage, her eyes tracing the chaotic dance of physics as metal fought rock. These Martian rovers were brutalist and over-engineered, designed for friction and brute force, not the elegant dance of orbital mechanics. The next day, she found them again, gathered around a real rover parked in a maintenance bay off the main thoroughfare. It was Jax, the boy from the day before. The machine was a beast of exposed framework, thick plating, and oversized shock absorbers. He was boasting, pointing out a new magnetic dampener he'd installed on the front axle. Lyra stood half-hidden behind a stack of empty coolant barrels, her heart hammering against her ribs. The urge to just turn around, to retreat back to the anonymous flow of the hub, was a physical pull. This wasn't her fight. But then she saw her father's face in her mind, the deep lines of exhaustion, the stubborn pride in his dust-caked hands. She heard the jeering laughter from the day before, the casual cruelty of the word floatie. And looking at the rover, at the newly installed dampener gleaming under the harsh industrial lights, her anger solidified into something colder and sharper. Offense. It wasn't just arrogance. It was incompetent arrogance. A potentially fatal flaw, worn like a badge of honor. On Syrtis, that kind of oversight didn't just lose a race. It cracked a dome. Steeling herself, she stepped out from behind the barrels and walked over. "You're going to lose," she said, her voice quiet but clear. Jax and his friends turned, their expression shifting from surprise to amusement. "What did you say, Floatie?" "Your dampener," she pointed. Her belter upbringing, where wasting words was as bad as wasting oxygen, made her blunt. "The field polarity is inverted. It'll fight the gyroscopic precession in a hard right turn instead of stabilizing it. You'll get a harmonic shudder.
Best case, you lose speed. Worst case, the axle shears. A dead silence fell over the group. Jax's face hardened, his pride stung not just by the challenge, but by its source. Easy to talk about harmonics and perfect fields from inside a tin can where nothing ever gets dirty, he shot back, his voice edged with a new bitterness. Out here, we deal with 100-micron dust that grinds your gears to paste and air filters that can choke in a minute. Red dirt doesn't care about your clean room math. What would a belter know about that? I know about magnetic fields, Lyra countered, unflinching. They work here as they do in the belt. And I know about harmonics. On my last ship, a resonance flaw 0.5% off spec would have torn the comms array from the hull. You listen for the things that can kill you. Your rover is screaming. She held his gaze, her fear replaced by a cold, familiar confidence. This was her language. This was her ground. Jack stared at her for a long moment, the cocksure mask warring with the ingrained pragmatism of a Martian engineer. He turned to the rover, running a hand over the dampener housing, his expression thoughtful. He didn't apologize. He didn't thank her. "Run a full diagnostic," he grunted to one of his friends, not looking at Lyra. It was a dismissal, but it felt like a victory. Lyra turned and walked away, the weight on her shoulders feeling just a little bit lighter. She still wasn't a red dirt Martian, and she didn't want to be. She was a belter, a floatie, a girl who understood the whispers of a machine on the verge of breaking. And she was starting to realize that on a planet built of them, that was a language everyone had to respect.